Thank you, Mr President. I seek leave to make a brief explanation before asking a question to the Attorney-General regarding voluntary assisted dying.
Is leave granted? Leave is granted. The Honourable Mrs Henderson.
It's been reported that Kim Allen Parsons, who's now pleaded guilty to armed robbery charges and admitted to being the bicycle bandit, has been approved for voluntary assisted dying and has the means to end his life. It was reported that this would have been around 8 months before his trial. It has also been reported that he had a voluntary assisted dying kit and had approval to make use of it. One source has said that, and I quote, "I think if he uses a voluntary assisted dying, it won't be fair. Where is the justice?" Late last year, it was reported that repeated pedophile Malcolm Winston Day died days just after being accepted into the voluntary assisted dying program. At the time, one of Mr Day's victims said, and I quote, "All I asked was that he served his sentence. For the government to allow him to choose his own destiny is another blow. I hope this is the case that changes the legislation so that the next victim of the next offender does not have to experience this," end quote. My questions to the Minister are, 1, does the Minister support individuals facing charges being granted access to voluntary assisted dying before trial? 2, does the Minister support individuals convicted of offences to be granted access to voluntary assisted dying whilst serving out their term of imprisonment? And 3, does the Attorney-General believe the legislation should be amended to ensure those convicted and serving a term of imprisonment or those who are charged and awaiting trial are not able to access voluntary assisted dying?
Call the Attorney-General.
I thank the honourable member for her question. So in relation to individual matters, I certainly won't be commenting on an individual matter and whether someone has applied for or has been granted access to voluntary assisted dying. I don't know, and nor should I, nor should anyone else against someone's wishes if they've what medical treatment they've applied for or undergoing. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to talk about a particular individual circumstance, sir. However, what I can say, sir, is in relation to the voluntary assisted dying scheme that this Parliament passed during the last term, we see, consistent with what I think the former Health Minister, Stephen Wade, called the model that was developing that is now in effect in every jurisdiction now, apart from the Northern Territory, with the passing of legislation in the Australian Capital Territory only in recent weeks. What the Honourable Stephen Wade referred to as the Australian model of voluntary assisted dying that incorporates some of the most stringent conditions of both the North American and the European model. Sir, I think the voluntary assisted dying model that is developed in Australia with some variations in different jurisdictions is recognised as the most conservative approach to voluntary assisted dying anywhere in the world. I'm trying to remember the Victorian model, which was the first in 2017 in Australia, had something like in the mid to high 60s in terms of protections in place. The South Australian model added to that, and if my memory was something like 72 different protections that were in place throughout the operation of the scheme, sir, and importantly for a person to gain access to voluntary assisted dying, they have to be assessed under the model in South Australia, which is reasonably consistent with most other states, to having an incurable disease or affliction that will end their life, and end their life within 6 months. For neurodegenerative conditions, that's within 12 months, and they have to be assessed by 2 different medical practitioners to make that assessment, sir.